What if the world's most overlooked nations finally found a way to break the chains of centuries-old unfair trade right in plain sight? Beneath the relentless sun of West Africa, something quietly explosive has taken shape. Two countries rarely splashed across global headlines, Burkina Faso and Bangladesh, have just shaken hands on a deal that could redraw the map of world trade. Gone are the Western brokers and the endless parade of middlemen. For the first time, Burkina Faso, a force in cotton, will sell its prized crops straight to Bangladesh, one of the world's textile giants. No more costly detours, no more outsiders steering the wheel. It is just two underdogs rewriting their own destinies. But here is the kicker. Burkina Faso is fueling this revolution from within. No handouts, no backbreaking loans, no invisible strings. Every tractor, every bale of cotton is paid for with wealth earned at home, not borrowed or begged from richer powers. For so many years, the global South, the vast nations of Africa and Asia, have been told to wait their turn, settle for less, and depend on the fortunes of others. Now, this deal is more than paperwork. It is a shot across the bow. We set our own terms. We decide our own worth. Already, whispers of rebellion drift through trading rooms and policy halls. Could this single, quiet act light a fire that spreads across continents? If the world looks away, the old patterns of exploitation will only harden. But if this moment is seen for what it is, it could topple the first domino in a global shift no one predicted. To see how a single handshake in a dusty field might tilt the balance of world power, let us step into the story's first chapter. This is not just a trade agreement, it is a quiet revolution. To understand why, we must look at the forces that shaped these nations' hunger for change. For generations, Africa's sweat and soil fueled fortunes far beyond its borders. What happens when those who have always labored finally demand more? Imagine vast fields of cotton stretching beneath the relentless Sahel sun. The hands of African farmers, calloused and proud, have spent lifetimes picking, bundling, and sending their harvests away. For more than 100 years, Europe and America played a ruthless game. Buy Africa's cotton dirt cheap, ship it across oceans, and sell it back as costly shirts and elegant dresses. The rules of this game were never written in Africa, and the victors never lived among the rows of cotton. This was not just business. It was a system. It built immense wealth for Western nations, but chained African countries to a punishing cycle of dependence and scarcity. Each harvest arrived with hope, and yet humiliation. The raw cotton vanished overseas, returning as luxury goods most Africans would never touch. Generation after generation, the promise dangled. Keep working, keep waiting, and soon prosperity will arrive. But it rarely did, and the chains only grew heavier. Let us look to history for echoes of this pattern. During the British colonial era in India, local weavers were systematically undercut by cheap British textiles. Entire towns, such as Dhaka, once famed for its muslin, saw livelihoods destroyed as raw cotton and silk were extracted, processed in Britain, and resold at prices the local population could scarcely afford. Similarly, in the Congo, the forced rubber extraction under Belgian rule led to unimaginable wealth for European companies, while Congolese families bore the suffering and loss. These examples show that the cotton game is just one chapter in a long story of resource extraction and power imbalance. Now, a new voice slices through the chorus of foreign promises. In Burkina Faso, a bold leader emerges. Ibrahim Traorey, just 37 years old in the year 2025, the world's youngest president. He is done with patience. Traorey refuses to let his country's wealth build the empires of others any longer. His message is uncompromising. Shatter the cycle, trade as equals, and export not just raw cotton, but pride and self-worth. Traorey dreams of a Burkina Faso where tractors roll into villages as symbols of achievement, not foreign pity. where every bale of cotton marks a step toward dignity and a future chosen by its own people, not another spiral of debt and broken promises. Recall the story of Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso during the 1980s. Sankara famously refused foreign aid, declaring, "He who feeds you controls you." Traorey's approach echoes this sentiment, but rather than rejecting all trade, he demands equitable trade. He recognizes that true independence means building value chains at home, a lesson learned by countries like South Korea, which rapidly developed its manufacturing sector by investing locally and demanding fair partnerships. But this revolt carries risks. If nothing changes, poverty and foreign control will remain unbroken. Yet to stand up means risking backlash, sanctions, lost markets, or pressure to obey the old rules. Still, the prize is profound. The chance for Burkina Faso and all of Africa to finally name their own price, craft their own narrative, and seize what has always been theirs. As these determined new voices challenge the world's old order, tension mounts. The global spotlight sharpens. Will Africa break its chains? Or will the powers that be force the continent back into silence? But Traorey is not alone in this fight. Thousands of miles to the east, another unlikely ally is preparing to upend the rules alongside him. What does it feel like when independence arrives, not as a handout, but with the thunder of engines and the scent of possibility? In the first weeks after the agreement, dawn breaks differently across Burkina Faso. Villages stir to the low growl of tractors. Red machines, never seen here before, shimmer under the Sahel sky. Alongside them, solar pumps draw water for cotton, their steady hum a promise against drought. Sacks of fertilizer, their only mark the nation's own crest, stack up in cooperatives. These tools are not gifts from distant donors. Every seed, every bolt, every drop of hope is bought outright, owned by Burkina Faso itself. Let us imagine a farmer named Awa. For decades, Awa's family worked their fields with little more than hand tools and hope. Each year, they sold their cottons to foreign companies at prices set far away, barely enough to cover basic needs. Now, with direct trade profits, Awa's cooperative purchases a tractor. For the first time, her children no longer miss school to help in the fields, and she can afford to repair the village well. The ripple effects of local investment touch every home. Farmers who once watched their harvests disappear for pennies now gather in proud circles. Cooperatives sprout up, weaving together elders and the young. The old are greeted with new respect. Their wisdom finally has weight. No one bargains from a place of need, but from shared pride. For the first time, teenagers and those barely past childhood imagine futures rooted in their villages, not just in anonymous cities or far-off capitals. Independence is not just a matter of fields. In Bangladesh, the first bales of Burkina Faso cotton are rolled from containers. Textile workers touch the fibers, soft and clean, knowing these did not pass through Western middlemen. The cotton is direct, and so is the connection. Workers begin to speak, not just of wages, but of alliance and dignity. Mutual respect grows thread by thread. A practical step emerges as Bangladeshi factories host virtual meetings with Burkina Faso farmers. Textile workers ask about growing conditions and fair pricing, while farmers learn about the demands of global markets. This dialogue breaks down barriers that once allowed exploiters to thrive on silence and separation. The two sides collaborate on quality standards, ensuring that both partners benefit from improvements rather than just the buyers. A new dialogue is born. Burkina Faso farmers and Bangladeshi spinners send messages, make calls, share video tours of their work. Students and entrepreneurs swap ideas for water-saving crops, for better looms and smarter soils. Old knowledge meets hungry innovation. East and West Africa shake hands with South Asia, all without waiting for the world's permission. But hope alone cannot guarantee a harvest. If yields falter, if prices crash, if trust snaps, the old wounds of suspicion may bleed again. The taste of hope could curdle, leaving bitterness behind. Yet if this experiment thrives, these two nations may accomplish what the world's powers said was impossible, rewriting their futures together on their own terms. What began as a simple trade deal now grows into something larger, a movement that touches earth, spirit, and society. As the partnership deepens, change ripples from fields to city streets, across borders and oceans, stirring dreams that reach far beyond cotton. Consider the historical example of the United States New Deal in the 1930s. By investing in rural electrification and direct support for farmers, entire regions saw increases in productivity and community pride. In a similar spirit, Burkina Faso invests its profits not just in agriculture, but in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, laying the foundation for holistic development. But every movement has its shadows. As change spreads, old powers begin to take notice, and not everyone is ready to let go. One bold deal sets the spark. Can pride and progress spread across a continent, or will old doubts snuff out the flame? The Cotton Rebellion's shockwaves travel far beyond the fields. All across Burkina Faso, the government launches national roadwork crews funded by their own coffers. No World Bank loans, no foreign strings, just fresh highways and sturdy bridges, linking villages once stranded by dust and distance. Where donkeys once plodded, trucks now thunder, hauling cotton, tools, and the promise of new beginnings. These infrastructure projects are not just about movement, they symbolize self-belief. In Ghana, a similar moment occurred when cocoa farmers formed cooperatives to negotiate better prices and construct schools. Inspired by such examples, Burkina Faso's cotton growers reinvest their gains into community health clinics, savings groups, and women's enterprises. The entire local economy starts to hum with new activity. Opportunity rises from the earth. For the first time in living memory, women and young people choose to stay. Rather than queuing at embassies or risking dangerous journeys abroad, they build futures at home. The tide of migration slows, replaced by a new dignity found in working their own land and shaping their own destinies. In one village, a young woman named Fatoumata starts a small business making natural cotton dyes, hiring neighbors and exporting to Bangladesh as part of the same partnership. This small step is multiplied by thousands, transforming rural economies and reversing the brain drain that has long sapped African potential. The revolution reaches the classroom. In the heart of Bobo Dioulasso, a new agricultural academy flings open its doors. Here, farming is no longer a fallback, but a calling, a profession honored as the backbone of the nation. Students learn modern methods, sustainable practices, and business acumen, readying themselves to lead the next wave of innovation. Technology and education combine. Students at the academy design water sensors to monitor soil moisture, reducing waste and boosting yields. A partnership with a Bangladeshi university leads to an exchange program where young people swap places and ideas, learning firsthand about the global value chain they now help control. But the cotton deal's impact does not end with trade. It leaps into the digital age. Every bale tracked by blockchain, ensuring transparency from soil to spinning mill. Local youth, once resigned to exile or unemployment, now launch tech startups. They create rain forecasting apps, farmer advice networks, and platforms connecting buyers across Africa and Asia. Together, they build a pan-African cooperative, wielding power through unity and rewriting the rules for themselves. Consider the case of M-Pesa in Kenya, a mobile money platform that revolutionized commerce by giving ordinary people secure access to financial services. Inspired by M-Pesa's success, Burkina Faso develops its own digital payment system to allow even the most remote farmers to receive payment instantly and transparently, eliminating leakages and delays. Cotton itself transforms into a living symbol. It is no longer a silent commodity, but a banner of liberation, stitched into school uniforms, waved at village festivals, and woven into a new story of pride. The world's headlines shift. crisis gives way to innovation, and old tales of desperation are replaced by narratives of agency and hope. Yet the stakes have never been higher. If this experiment succeeds, it could ignite a movement from Senegal to Sri Lanka, proving that self-reliance is not a distant dream, but a living blueprint. If it falters, critics will say Africa tried and failed again, tightening the trap of dependence. In the 1960s, newly independent nations tried import substitution, building their own factories to replace imports. While some failed due to corruption or lack of scale, others, like Brazil, managed to create world-class industries. The lesson: success depends on honest leadership, strong institutions, and continued public engagement. Burkina Faso's experiment can avoid past pitfalls by prioritizing transparency and inclusivity from the start. Now, the world watches West Africa. Global buyers scramble to adapt. Officials dissect the model. Manufacturers from distant capitals wonder, has the cotton game changed forever? But is a single success enough to topple the old order? The next move may decide who truly holds the threads of power. What if the power to rewrite the world's rules is already in our grasp, buried in the earth, humming in the workshop, or alive in the classroom? This is not fantasy or far-off hope. The Cotton Rebellion proves it is unfolding now, as ordinary people in forgotten places refuse to wait for permission and begin to craft their own future. Direct trade and local investment do more than circulate money. They breathe life into communities. In Burkina Faso and Bangladesh, new jobs are sprouting, incomes are lifting, and families glimpse futures once denied. When cotton bypasses foreign middlemen, more of each hard-earned franc or taka remains with the grower, and pride blossoms in the village square. Let us look at a practical step. First, invest in local processing. Turn raw cotton into thread or cloth before exporting. Second, form regional alliances to negotiate fairer prices, as the Caribbean did with bananas in the 1990s. Third, build transparency using technology, so every worker, buyer, and seller is connected and informed. Finally, prioritize education and training to ensure that gains are sustained across generations. But this story goes further than business. Technology arrives not as a handout, but as a tool of respect. Solar pumps coax green life from parched fields. Local factories hum with new machines. Education programs show young people that destiny is not shaped by charity or chance, but by skill, ambition, and shared pride. Schools now fly the cotton flag, teaching that each talent is a seed for tomorrow's harvest. This rebellion demonstrates that the global South does not need anyone's blessing to succeed. Two nations, long dismissed, are rewriting the rules, showing that respect, partnership, and ingenuity can replace dependence. By daring to trade directly, they send a message. Our resources and labor matter, and we will decide their value. Heroes are not just presidents or CEOs. They are farmers planting new crops, students learning to code, workers starting cooperatives, tailors sewing pride into every seam. The true revolution begins when ordinary people discover that their own hands can shape their nation's destiny. Of course, there are risks. Choosing action, whether joining a cooperative or signing a bold agreement, means facing uncertainty. There may be backlash from old power brokers or new struggles without a safety net. Yet history shows that staying passive, accepting the old rules, ensures a future where others decide your worth. What can we learn from this? The Cotton Rebellion serves as a blueprint, not just for countries, but for communities and individuals everywhere. It is living proof that agency begins with belief and grows with unity, creativity, and courage. If we follow their lead, what rules might we change in our own lives? A local school in your own community decides to source all its uniforms from a cooperative that pays fair wages using transparent supply chains. The pride that students and parents feel echoes the spirit of the Cotton Rebellion. Or consider a small business that chooses to invest in local producers, building relationships that transcend borders and create lasting value. These steps, multiplied by millions, create an unstoppable force for change. But where does this movement go from here? The seeds of change have been planted. Now, the world watches to see what will bloom. Every thread in your shirt carries a question. Will you choose one woven with freedom or with silence? This is not just a transaction between two distant nations. It is a spark, one that could set the world alight with possibility. The Cotton Rebellion began when Burkina Faso and Bangladesh refused to wait for a nod from the powerful. They charted their own course, placing value in their people, their land, their pride. Dignity, they show us, is not granted by foreign boardrooms. It is claimed, stitch by stitch, through courage and partnership. Consider what this means. For generations, the few made the rules, deciding who deserved profit and whose labor remained invisible. Now, with each bale of cotton traded directly, without middlemen or distant approval, the old story unravels. Communities once sidelined are rising, working in the sunlight of their own potential. Imagine millions of farmers and workers, no longer shackled to endless chains of dependency. Picture factories humming not only in Bangladesh, but across the global south, powered by alliances built on respect, not on pity. This is not simply economics. It is the reclamation of agency, the renewal of destinies, and the rediscovery of pride in each city and village. But there is a risk. If we turn away, if we wait for others to act, the old cycle will tighten its grip. The world will go on buying cheap, selling high, and erasing entire nations from the story. Welcoming this new narrative means changing what we wear, how we trade, and the pride we hold for our communities. It asks us to see worth not just in finished goods, but in every hand that shapes them. You have a choice. Will you join this movement, telling its story, seeking its products, supporting a world where the South rises by its own design? Or will you let the old order write the ending once more? The Cotton Rebellion is not the closing of a chapter. It is a beginning, global, daring, and unstoppable. The next revolution in trade, dignity, and freedom is waiting. It starts with you.